So, welcome everyone. Good day. I'll cover it all right there. Good day. I'm Jan Jeremias. And just a little bit about me. I combine 20 years of clinical research with strong emotional intelligence to deliver holistic wellness coaching for people and their pets. Um, and I'm here today with my beautiful friend, collaborator, and the very kind and wonderful Mary Jane McQueen. Mary Jane, I'll pass it to you.
Thank you, Jan. Those are hard words to follow. So yes, I am Mary Jane or MJ, and I'm the founder of MJ McQueen Creative Studio, where I help my fellow entrepreneurs to step into the light and share their gifts. And I help them to overcome self-doubt, finding their voice, and creating visuals that align with their mission. Because when we connect with our true selves, we connect more deeply with others. And as always, I'm honored to be here today with all of you, along with my beautiful friend Jan Jeremias, who, as I always mention, inspires me every day to shine brightly. I really do love this beautiful community we are weaving. Notice the nuance into a beautiful tapestry with all the colorful threads and the beautiful spirits that join us in conversation and meditation each week. I really want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being part of Spirit Born Imaginings.
Mary Jane, would you like to share
Yes.
our
Yes,
offering?
I will. I just have to go. I have to find my screen, Jan.
We are weaving our lives. We are weaving our hearts and our minds. We are weaving the bright and dark threads of our journeys through life. We are weaving our lives. We are weaving our hearts and our minds. We are weaving the bright and dark threads of our journeys through life. Journeys through. Journeys through. Journeys through.
Jan and I came across the song, and we thought it was just such a beautiful reflection of what our topic was today that we wanted to share that with you. And now I will share with you, if it's okay, Jan, I'll share the poem now.
Absolutely.
So the poem is named The Tapestry of Existence, and it's by, I probably will not say it correctly, but Ni in Uchiel. And it reads like this: You are not a single thread, alone in the vastness. You are part of the weave, and the braid is strong enough to hold it all. You look at the pattern and wonder, am I creating this, or is it creating me? And the loom replies in the silent language of movement, yes. Each thread tells a story, a tale woven in time, intertwined with others in rhyme and rhythm. The fabric of life grows as you journey on, connecting to others in a tapestry of dawn. The warp and the weft of moments, the colors intertwine, a symphony of existence, a masterpiece divine. The weave is the story, the pattern of life, a dance of creation in harmony, in strife. In every twist and turn, each thread plays its part, bound by the bonds of love, a weave of the heart.
So beautiful, Mary Jane. I mean, I love that poem when we found it. Um, so welcome everyone, and thank you for joining and gathering with us today for Weaving Lives, Stories, and Sacred Threads. Picture a skilled weaver at her loom or at his loom, selecting vibrant threads of varied colors, textures, and origins, each representing a unique voice, a distinct need across races, genders, religions, and identities. Some threads call attention to themselves, shining brightly. Others offer the steady foundation that holds the entire weave together. In the art of weaving, true beauty doesn't come from uniformity. It emerges from the harmony created among these diverse threads. This vision holds true not just for us as individuals, but for our community as a whole. Each of us is a thread, distinct, essential, and part of something larger. And when we come together through storytelling, presence, and shared intention, we weave a living tapestry that transcends what any one thread could achieve alone. And yet, each of us is more than just one thread in the communal tapestry. We are also our own intricate weaving. Inside us are many threads, our stories, experiences, roles, beliefs, gifts, and identities. And to be fully seen and valued, both by ourselves and by others, we must honor not only the bright, standout threads, but also the quieter ones, the steady, sustaining ones. And our time together will hold both these truths, the interdependence of our community as we weave something far stronger and more beautiful together, and the richness of our individual tapestries as we acknowledge and give space to every part of who we are. We'll approach both the communal loom and our own inner loom with intention and care. We'll listen deeply, share generously, and honor the bright highlights alongside the foundational strands of our collective and personal tapestries. Each thread deserves recognition, and every story, no matter how small, enriches the whole. So, welcome to the loom, to the conversation, to the community in this moment. Let's weave thoughtfully, ensuring every thread in ourselves and among us has its rightful place, strength, and beauty. Let's weave.
Such a strong visual, isn't it, Jen, with weaving that tapestry, the beauty that can come from such simple threads. Um, just just the visual for that um is quite lovely. And it's just it's true in our own lives. We can see when we look back, sometimes if we look at back at things, especially with gratitude, we see the perhaps the missteps or the misguided little threads that might have happened along the way. But wow, what a beautiful tapestry of color that brings to mind. So it's just a lovely,
Thank
beautiful.
you. And absolutely true. I think sometimes the hardest parts, where there are the most knots and most interwoven parts, the like kind of like the messy parts, actually are even more beautiful. They're the parts where the knots or the texture is enhanced and magnified, as opposed to the maybe those smooth parts. And it's the contrast between both, which makes it even more beautiful. And I also love the visual. I mean, and I think that sometimes it's like looking at a painting. When you look up close, you don't necessarily see the beauty. But when you take a step back and you see the like a much more expansive view, the beauty like all of a sudden is revealed. Seamus.
Yeah, thanks so much, John. I mean, yeah, it's a lovely topic. And as you were speaking, originally, like your introduction, like I was thinking like about the threads, and human threads came to mind, and then you kind of went to the threads inside each human being. But I was also thinking of like the threads we're talking about was the threads that make us, um, what we are as individual human beings. But it's also thinking you can go the opposite direction to going inside, like we're made up of threads inside. We're also a part of threads made up by aspects outside ourselves, like outside the human experience and the human threads, like which is, the animals I was thinking about, like animal threads and environmental threads and mountain threads and you name it, threads that make up the full part of the experience that we're part of, I guess. And that was coming to mind. And then just as you were speaking there, it's the contrast, like it's a great metaphor as well for the ups and downs of life. And we all have good days and bad days and good moments within days and less good moments within days. And again, it's back to that contrast that makes everything, to be worthwhile when we are able to see, I guess, or experience the value of noticing like what's going on literally from within ourselves to be better prepared to appreciate every experience, whether it's good, whether we label it as good, bad, or indifferent. So, yeah, this is just coming to mind. And the last thing I was thinking about was the Planck constant. you know, in the overall scheme of things, it's the smallest, possible measurement we can perceive as human beings. But it's kind of another metaphor for, the threads is the Planck constant that is beneath everything and multiples of Planck constants that are around and are, make everything what it is.
Absolutely. And I think that the constants, and I think sometimes those constants, like you said, are outside ourselves. I mean, I think they're the experiences that are passed down by people in our lives, by our history, by the environment and the fact that where we're raised and all the different sort of influences that come in that we don't necessarily even recognize from the time we're born. And those are really almost a baseline of our existence. It's like, that's originally how if you might want to say our identity or our of who we are is formed is based on those threads, those stories of people who have passed them down to us throughout our lives. And and I think that's what makes the tapestry. I mean, if you think about rich, there's a richness to it, a depth, which only happens because we have such a elaborate, in a way, history. And every time, like we're together, each one of us, like a thread, like we impart some aspect of ourselves into that sort of like foundation or into that identity of who each one of us are. We never leave how we came into the conversation. We are enriched by it because of all of you. So, that becomes sort of an integral thread in who you are in your own tapestry. And Mary Jane is here in picture. Yay.
Sorry, it was bugging me.
It's okay. I get it. You found
Yeah,
it.
but the fact is as well, it's just like maybe before Austin speaks, it's about the idea then that it's continually being advanced and evolving and growing and changing, like we all are as individual human beings, like your neuroplasticity, like is another example, just what you shared. Like every moment we're not staying the same, we're different from the previous moment, and I think that's again another great metaphor for the tapestry. The tapestry is never finished; it continues to evolve and grow and change and add value depending on, the threads involved and the people who see the threads and the unfolding threads and how it's evolving, and they contribute to the ongoing makeup of the tapestry in its most natural beauty, I suppose. So yeah, it's a kind of an amazing when you give yourself just time to think about it as a metaphor for life and a metaphor for how we are and how we continue to be and evolve and grow. It's a kind of it never ends basically, what I mean, which is wonderful kind of context and wonderful, I suppose, to realize that we're part of something much bigger than each of us individually, but we contribute to that as well.
Absolutely. And, in preparation, we found a really beautiful, beautiful sort of essay or Mary Jane found called Tapestry of Life. And in it, one of the lines that she writes really struck me. Um, she says the tapestry of life is unique in that it's never completed. There isn't a final completed picture. And one day the weaver just stopped stitching. And it was just like that line took my breath away. It was just like it's ongoing. And then one day, you know, we die, and at least in this physical form or whatever, maybe the weaving continues on in another life or in the energy that we leave or we always have, but that's sort of like our perception or our idea of that energy changes. And so that weaving in one way or another stops. And so it was just like, oh, it was like that continuous process until the day we die. Like there's no deadline and there's no completion list. Austin.
Yes, thank you, Jan. Weaving and tapestry. I had a thought about snow. And if you're aware, when it snows, there's a resonant frequency that's put off of about 20 hertz. And when I thought of the weaving and our strings, my mind kept going to uniqueness and how we're perceiving not just the weaving, but the string. And are we local to it? Are we giving a story to it? And I wanted to start originally when I was like, oh, let me add this. This is big for me. I was thinking of especially when you said step back and you can maybe see the beauty. I thought of how we have a tendency as beings on this planet during this time to like judge ourselves and be harsh on ourselves, almost to like if you think of an artist, as is common with artists, the picture's never good enough. You know, the oh I did but this mistake and this mistake. If you think of watching a movie where someone needs to select their image that they're going to choose to put up for rating or whatever, and they have a hard time choosing. And I thought of how we have a tendency to do that with our own weaving. We want to assess and measure and compare and judge and put a meaning that we know is going to change, and we love to normalize and familiarize ourselves with those meanings of the weaving. And then it transgressed into snow, and I thought about how on a collective level we we do create it, just for comparison as with the snow. Collectively, I thought of how we create that resonance, our reality, and we'll call it 20 hertz since we're talking about snow. But each weaving, each component to the tapestry of that beauty of snow, looking at it, an image, however you want to visualize that beauty, every snowflake carries a different frequency, but collectively, we still share this tapestry of 20 hertz for sake of that example. That's where my mind went. So thank you.
Thank you, Austin. That was beautiful. And I love the end where you said like each one of us is individual, unique, but together we create that 20 hertz, that frequency of snow. And the whole idea of perspective. And I guess I really thought about it a lot. I was a fine art minor. And as my final like painting project, I had to do a pointillist painting. If you know what pointillism is, it's like where you make dots and you create. Okay. And so for my very analytical and very scientific sort of geometry oriented brain was perfect. And I really, got it. And I was really into it. Like I would get in such a zone. But there's something about doing it and you get very sort of fixated on a very small part when you're creating it. But when you step back and you see the greater picture and it becomes something that's like, amazing. It's like, wow. And it's only when you step back and you get that perspective do you see the greater whole, or if you've ever spent any time and looking at any artwork, and paintings are great for this, I feel, is the fact that when you get up close, you could get very, and you look at the texture of the paint, depending on what the paint is like, and then you step back and you look at the painting from across the room. There's nothing like that sort of perspective of looking at the much larger canvas and seeing what it's meant to be, what the picture is, because sometimes when you're so close, you can't see it at all.
Precisely. I was thinking, if you zoomed in close enough, you'd see a beautiful snowflake. And That's fine and well. When you zoom out, you can see so much more.
It's absolutely true, Austin, and I really love the imagery too, Jan, that you were speaking to about painting, because as most of you know, I do paint, so that is one of my creative pursuits. So I, yeah, sometimes you get so fixated when you're, or I can only speak for my own my own experience, is you get so fixated on the minutia of details, the little things, that are making up the painting. And sometimes I know I've done this over and over again where I've like painted over something and started again, which I guess, is common in life in general. But sometimes we get so fixated on those little things that it really does the heart good to be able to just step back, as Jan was indicating, to step back and see the bigger picture and realizing that these little tiny details that are happening right now may or may not be obvious to other people. We know they're there, that's true. And I'm not saying to bypass them or ignore them, but it's just like to step back from that and see the bigger picture and realizing that really that life is good, and that we're weaving such a beautiful or painting such a beautiful picture, um not just for other people but for ourselves as well. So sometimes we need to zoom out and just take a look at it from a wider perspective, because sometimes we forget when we're caught up in all the details what it is that we're creating, and realizing that, when we step back, that we really are creating something beautiful, because it is our own beautiful life. It is our own beautiful painting, or our own beautiful tapestry, or the beautiful blanket of snow, as Austin brought to image, which it's really hard for me to picture snow right now, uh, because it's very hot here right now. So, but I love the imagery, that just speaks to my artist soul, of just being able to realize, because sometimes we also, when we zoom in on those little details, we can look and it's like, oh look, there's the paint stroke, oh look, there's some brushes, some hairs from the paintbrush, or there's whatever. Or we sometimes we get fixated on those things that really in the scheme of things aren't um, going to make any difference to the beauty of the tapestry or the painting, that the visual that we're creating. So I love this imagery.
Absolutely, Mary Jane. And I think sometimes we need someone else to help, like, point out the beauty of the tapestry.
Mhm.
Often we don't see it ourselves. And so we need other people like all of you here, for like we need each other basically to reveal the beauty of that tapestry, to, remind us that, of the colors and the contrast. And because, like, those dark times, we can become very fixated on those dark times. And yet it's that's that creates the depth, that perspective, that sort of 3D quality, that sort of richness, and the fact that it's multi-surfaced. And so we need that contrast, and we need other people to sometimes remind us and to sit down with us and kind of have a conversation like you, Mary Jane, to remind me at times and others who
Vice
know
versa.
and others, and you know who you are, to sit there, hint, hint, and that's what we all need, and that's what a community does. And the a tapestry, you have there's like alternating parts of it which are strong, like really durable, and
Mm,
then parts of it which are, maybe, I don't want to say weaker, but are softer and kind of have more give.
yes.
Points you take on each role. On points, you're the one who's like, sturdy and durable and there and strong and kind of like, okay, carry somebody, or literally um, allow the tapestry to continue. And then at points, the roles are switched.
Yeah, absolutely. That's it. This sort of speaks to a point. I loved one of the articles that we were reading when we were preparing for this. It was by Karen Hawley, and I really loved her idea of that. Um, that we are all on the collective loom, and that there's a sense of communal responsibility that we have for that. I really loved that. Um, that you brought the sense of community into that. And it's like, and she spoke to the fact that, we need to practice intentional listening, to listen to the other threads that are on the loom with us, because we need to move, like she was saying, we need to move beyond an either or mentality and realize that recognize the richness of tapestry that holds many voices and balance. And I just love that beautiful um the image that she created is this, that this is we must in some way, if we're going to move forward, to honor the individual stories that as we come together on the loom is creating a richness to our tapestry. And so I loved that perspective that she brought into the idea that there is a communal responsibility, to intentionally listen and to make space, literally, for the other threads to weave in. And I just, that was beautiful.
Absolutely. One of the lines from the article that she says a community flourishes when every thread is deliberately honored.
Hmm.
And that really struck me. And that whole idea of, I love that. It's not an either, it's not a one or another. Like, people make these blanket statements of like, let's say, we don't talk politics, but let's say, women should take over and rule or men. And it's not a one or the other, and that will never work. It's a melding of both. It's a tapestry of both. It's the interweaving of multiple threads, and it's not an absolute. And I've been looking a lot at, I think I've mentioned extreme language. So that either like, that black and white, where everything is all good or all bad, you know, yeah, not absolute. It's like, and I love that because I realize the phrases I use in my head that are absolute. It's like when something goes wrong in your day and you say nothing ever works out for me. And then so now when I start to say those things to myself, it's like I catch myself and I'm like, oh, and then I become the observer, like we talk about. Then I kind of step back and I'm like, okay, don't, careful or just not to get up, just to notice when I use things like that or phrases like that, or when I have like that kind of mindset of it's either all or one, you know, nothing, is that clear.
I was thinking as well, John, as you're staying step back, like when Austin mentioned, like it's been stuck in my head since he mentioned it, about the beauty of the individual snowflake. It is actually the invisible threads as well. Like that, we there's so much depth in the tapestry, that our human senses, let's say our vision, and say in this case, or maybe touch even, can't appreciate the actual at the next dimensional level below what we can see and touch and sense. Is there's real depth of beauty within inside each snowflake. So we can't see it, but we know it's there. Let's say we get a microscope or whatever, like, and we look into it, and oh my God, well, that's amazing. And it's kind of like looking into an individual cell. Like if you take the cell metaphor again, like about, yeah, a cell and it does its job. It has lovely receptors, but there's a whole lot of activity going on within the cell as well. And everything within the cell is doing its own job. And we don't, I suppose, really appreciate it until maybe have a conversation like this, where we actually then begin to, oh God, yeah, there's a depth here that I'm never really aware of until I create the space to really think about, the beauty outside, the beauty here within me, what I can see and touch and feel, but also like what's coming up now is the beauty deeper, much deeper at levels that I can't feel or touch, but they're absolutely there. in all their beauty, and it adds to the depth and the beauty and the complexity of the tapestry as well. And I think it's conversations like this that kind of really help me then to feel it's an even deeper root or anchor into, this whole thing we're part of,
Thank you so much, Seamus. Absolutely. Because I think it is conversations and stories and sharing that allows us to see the depth and the deepness of a particular, let's say, snowflake or thread. I think that when we look at the surface, if you look at the surface of the thread or the outside, let's say just the form of the snowflake, but you don't see those intricate nuances or the depth or the quality of the thread. I mean, you might just see the color, like, but there's so much in conversation or just getting to know people or hearing their story where all of a sudden they become more than just another person. You know, um, yeah, I think there's an African word that actually describes this where when you meet someone, I think the exact translation is like, I see you. It's not even just like a hello. And so, I mean, it is a greeting. But what it not actually means is like, oh, I see that you are in front of me. And I think that when we talk about these kind of conversations and stories, we're adding in so much more depth to someone that, it's so much beyond the surface. It's like getting into the nuances of that cell and all the different, you know, let's say tasks or duties or functions that it has, which are not apparent on the surface because basically, this is my background. Most cells look alike, like a lot of cells, if you were to just look on the outside, really don't have many differences. And yet they each have a different role and a different function in the body, or many do anyway.
I love now we have Jambo and Alice and
Sawubona.
Sayabona.
Sawubona was what I was referring to. Thank you, Seamus. I couldn't remember the word.
Yes.
And then also, Austin, you mentioned one of my favorite movies, of Avatar. Obviously, because they have an ohm tree. Like, how could I not love that movie?
It's very appropriate.
Yes. But it's true that that depth, which is revealed by each one of us each time we share something.
Yeah, that it's so true, and what a beautiful thing it is when we actually take time to listen to people's stories, because really they are the sacred connectors among us all. It's through those stories that we share with others, especially in spaces like this and other places as well in the world in general. We really start to realize in this human existence that we are experiencing right now, right here, that we aren't alone, that we are there, um, and other people are experiencing similar things. And there's
Mhm.
some beauty in that community of realizing that we're not alone and that we're all weaving this beautiful tapestry together if we only choose to look at the parts as well as the whole.
hmm And that we are each weaving our own tapestry, but together
Too.
we're weaving a much greater tapestry.
It kind of reminds me of quilting, you know.
Yes.
Well, that's when you just said that, it reminded me of a quilt. You know, we're all weaving our own little tapestries as well as we move through this existence. But then also we are um weaving them together into this beautiful um blanket or tapestry of all these colors and experiences. And what a beautiful way to take time to learn about those other people's experiences, because we realize when it comes down to it all, we are all one. We're all together as one piece. So I love that.
Absolutely. And as you mentioned, weaving, I love this whole like that visual because I do have a friend who's a weaver, who's like has a loom. I mean, the stuff she creates is spectacular, but I also have an old student that's a quilter, and I was showing Mary Jane some photos of some of the quilts she's made, which are just spectacular. And what's so beautiful is when you look at them, the side that, let's say, is the side that would be shown, or is the side that she's making, but the reverse side is just as beautiful. The side which is like the back side. And it's amazing that both are totally different and yet have this beauty. Maybe I'll ask her if I can post a picture because I'm not doing it justice by describing it. But it's just amazing to me that there'll be one pattern on the front that's really beautiful. That's, maybe, and then on the back, there's another pattern, which is just as beautiful. And I think that we tend to look at the surface of things far too often. And that's where we get that extreme language of labeling things, good or bad or whatever. And then when we look at the reverse side, or we look a little deeper, then we see a totally different, there's like something totally different that's revealed. And sometimes that's even better.
Yeah, that's so true, Jen. That's a really good way of looking. It's true even with weaving of tapestry as well. Yeah, that's true. Sometimes you can look on the other side and while people might perceive that to not be as beautiful in I'm doing air quotes and I know you can't see me, but um but um there's such a an interesting perspective of looking at like even a tapestry, one that usually is hanging against the wall, the side that's hanging against the wall, often those are the threads that are the supporting, repeated threads that are supporting the tapestry all the way through. And so there's a beauty in that too. They may not be seen um, from the front side per se, but they are definitely there creating that strength that's holding it all together. So there's a beauty in that as well. And we take
Absolutely.
turns in those roles, don't we? Being the ones that shine brightly on the front and the ones that kind of are in the back going, here I am behind you, lifting you up and supporting you.
Yes, absolutely. And there's all, and that's might be where the other things also are all of a sudden um, more present or more obvious. The things like the knots, and where one color changed like almost into another color. If you've ever seen someone weave or kind of weave, like shift colors in a tapestry, and then, we're in the same line, and then all of a sudden that one color kind of almost very gradually changes into another color as it evolves. And I think we've all had that experience as things have happened, and all of a sudden we've shifted out of, some aspect of ourselves, and we've kind of created something new based on the experiences that we've had. Al, please.
Yeah, when we talk about this weaving, I was always thinking back to like India and China, where the silkworm weaving is from the cocoons, you know. So this silkworm secrete a sticky liquid called serotonin, and it hardens with contact with air, forming a protective cocoon. You know. So from this cocoon, it takes time, to develop the silk fibers, and the fibers are spun into yarn, and then they were dried and woven into fabric. So it's a very delicate process, and it takes time, to develop. And all this, that's why silk is so expensive, and they are made into the fabric, the woven. And in fact, this is also a very complex, time-consuming production. There's the rarity of these materials, That's why silk compared to other materials is so expensive when we talk about that. And it comes back to our human lives as well. It's something like what the spider, they also weave the cobwebs and all that. Yeah. So when it weaves, it's so powerful that it can entrap the insects that fly, trying to fly through the cobwebs and all that. So when we develop this weaving concept, so I have an acronym for weave. When everyone achieves, victory emerges. So that's when if in the event of certain chaotic cases happening, I have also another acronym which states when everyone acts, the violence ends. So when in the event that everybody is a win-win situation during this weaving process. Thank you.
Thank you, Al, for bringing those other sort of examples of that whole example of weaving, from the spider web to silk. And I was also reminded of a bird's nest. If you've ever looked at like a bird's nest, I actually have two on my front porch at the moment, that now have birds, and some of the birds have babies, and so they're staying on my porch, and they're welcome. But the whole weaving, like a weaving of a basket, when the birds, like they gather different things. I mean, there's string, there's twigs, there's leaves, there's, grasses, like there's all these different elements that get like molded and create mud, water that get created into this web, into this home that they create for themselves. And so, it just reminded me of that, how in nature we see that all the time. I mean, if you think of weaving, of vines, just the intricacies of the way vines will navigate and hold on to something and then kind of grow around it, and how water does the same thing. It weaves its way through, around rocks and all those different things to be able to get to its source.
Yeah, I too enjoyed it. Yes, thank you all for bringing both your your wonderful acronyms as you always provide for us. It's like, is it wrong that Jan that I'm always waiting for Al to go, this is my
So,
acronym for
so am I. I was waiting for it to come up. I was like, when's he going to chime in? If not, we'll have to ask him for it,
Yeah, I know. I'm like, wait, no pressure, Al, you know. We
Absolutely.
love
Well,
we love the creativity. That's what it is. But
I think Al needs to create a book of acronyms.
yes, I think he does too. Imagine that. That would be cool.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I loved how he brought in the weaving of, both like with the making the cocoon and the silk with the silkworms and then also the spiders web. I mean, they too are unique and interesting if you actually take time to look at them. It depends on whether you're have an arachnophobe or not, but to look at the webs themselves, they're just beautiful um, art. Sometimes the way they can join from one place to another um, is quite incredible, and seeing how they weave those things together. Um, because they know how important it is for the weave and the connection, right? Because that's what they need is connection in order for that web to stay. So I just love that the visual that Al provided for us in addition to thing and Jan, you too, with the bringing in the idea of the basket, because it's not just about tapestry, because baskets are woven. It's quite amazing when you've seen people that are weaving baskets. It's quite incredible because, sometimes they're using things that are like sticks and things that are quite hard, and yet they manage with their own techniques to be able to bend them and shape them into something beautiful. So,
Absolutely. And, as you were talking about spider webs, I love spider webs. Even though I'm not like, I don't know that I totally, well, I appreciate spiders, but I don't really, for me. But that whole idea of the webs, and to me, if it's rained and you can see them, like, especially because the water's like slightly adhering to them,
yes.
their patterns are spectacular. And the fact that they are unbelievably strong, just like that basket and just like our tapestry. Like, I mean, the tapestry is the strength that it sort of has um, to sustain and to go on. But then I was also thinking about like those, what Seamus spoke about earlier, about like those invisible threads and the things that keep things in patterns. And I was reminded of, you know, geese patterns when geese fly in a V. There's this sort of invisible thread that keeps them in formation, like this energetic thread of them knowing their place and knowing, those, ones that are like in the front and those that kind of take up the rear, and how it's like it is creating a pattern or a weave in a way. And that thread that keeps them together in formation to me is like those invisible threads, which are not apparent to us, but obviously are sensed by them.
Yeah, and I loved the idea that you brought the idea of energy into it because for instance with the geese flying that pattern, there's one that takes the lead, but as they fly and they go such long distances to fly, often when the seasons change, um, when one tires,
Mhm.
another takes over. So they energetically know when one is getting tired with the leading, that another one takes its place and it moves back into the formation. And I just think that's such a beautiful sense of community and the energy that that's created by that. It's just, you know, it's like with the tapestry or anything else. It's like, there's some threads that are going to demand are demanding or commanding attention at any given moment, but sometimes the softer pieces come through and take over when those are tired or need a rest or need to change. So what a beautiful visual that is too.
Yeah, and absolutely. I mean, the whole thing that when, if one of the geese is injured, there's always a few that go down and stay.
Yes.
They stay until that geese is ready to fly, that goose is ready to fly. Um, and and that could be a very long period of time. And they only leave if the goose happens to pass away like that. And so, and then they go back and they fly back. Like they'll go back to their original, grouping and they fly again in that formation. And that's such unbelievable like loyalty and community and support. And that whole idea of like you're not, the individual is important, but there's something far greater, and that's the greater whole.
Absolutely. What a beautiful conversation.
Absolutely. Ugh, everyone. I don't know. Does anybody have any final thoughts or things to share before we move into a few moments of meditation? Okay. To Mary Jane, I guess I'll begin. So begin by getting comfortable, seated or lying down, hands resting softly. Let your eyes close if it feels right. Take a few deep breaths, slow breaths, inhaling through the nose and exhaling through the mouth if comfortable, inviting presence and calm. With each breath, feel the weight of your body, the rise and fall of your chest. Notice any tension and see if you can allow it to soften. Invite in quietness in your mind, awaiting with open curiosity. And in your mind's eye, picture a loom before you. You are both the weaver and the watcher of a growing tapestry. See vibrant threads of many colors and textures, each one a part of you, your stories, emotions, roles, strengths, vulnerabilities. And as the weaver, you reach for a thread, maybe a golden thread of joy, a deep blue of grief, a sturdy brown of resilience. And with intention and care, you draw it into the weaving. Feel the texture between your fingers, sense its essence. Now gently step back for perspective and observe the tapestry forming. Notice how new threads shift the pattern, how they connect with older ones, and how each contributes to the emerging whole. And now become the watcher, calm, grounded, curious. And from this place, you witness your weaving without judgment, simply honoring each thread. If a thread feels uncomfortable or tangled, observe it compassionately, knowing it too adds depth and meaning. Now expand your vision and see that your tapestry sits alongside many others in a communal weave. Feel how your threads intersect, how your patterns influence and are influenced by the larger fabric of shared humanity. As both the weaver and watcher, you hold space for your own inner threads and for the presence and stories of others. Feel the strength in that relational harmony. Breathe in and sense the unity of all these threads, your own and those of others. And with each exhale, feel gratitude for the weaver's care and the tapestry's richness. You are creating and being held by this evolving masterpiece. Let the tapestry gently fade. Return your awareness to your breath, your body, the room around you, or the space around you. And remember, you are both the observer, the weaver, and the tapestry. Gently wiggle your fingers and toes. And when you're ready, feel free to slowly open your eyes. You are
Thank,
the observer, the weaver, and the tapestry.
thank you, Jan, for bringing that to our attention. It was beautiful.
You're so welcome. So thank you all for joining us today. Um, as always, if you feel so inclined, take a moment to connect with us during the week. We will be back next Friday, hopefully, a different topic, or maybe just an expansion, as we keep on weaving our way forward. And we now have a package of our 3 upcoming workshops that are happening this fall, September, October, and December. But we also will be here each Friday. But if you decide you'd like to take advantage of those packages, we have the links online and we would love to have you. Have a blessed weekend, everybody. I know that for the Healthy Neighborhoods Project tomorrow, which some of you have, or many of you have joined, Seamus is speaking. So that should be
Awesome.
amazing. Yeah, that should be amazing. So, please join. If you'd like the link to that, just maybe we'll drop it in the comments section of our post so that you can join tomorrow and listen to Seamus's wisdom.
Yes, even more wisdom than he shares with us here.
I know, I know. That's hard to believe we know, but there
Like,
is
yeah,
God.
you know,
There's
we
huge
trust.
depth there.
But it would be lovely. It would be lovely.
I'm trying to remain humble now. Yeah, my head is swelling. Thank you.
It's okay. We will allow a space for in our tapestry for the head
Yeah.
swelling. It's all
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Go out and shine brightly.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone.
Thanks,
Bye,
everyone.
And
everybody.